Mahatma Gandhi, known as the "Father of the Nation" in India, was a towering figure in the struggle for independence from British colonial rule. His life story is one of profound transformation, courage, and unwavering commitment to the principles of truth and nonviolence. Born on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, a small coastal town in present-day Gujarat, India, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi came from a family deeply rooted in religious traditions and principles. His life journey took him from an ordinary boy in a modest Indian family to an international symbol of resistance and freedom. Early life and influences. Gandhi was born into a devout Hindu family. His mother, Putlabai, was especially pious and often fasted. These early experiences of observing her strong sense of duty and spirituality would leave a lasting impact on young Mohandas. Gandhi's father, Karamchand Gandhi, was the chief minister, Diwan, of Porbandar, which exposed Gandhi to the intricacies of politics and governance from a young age. At 13, he entered into an arranged marriage with Kasturba, who would become his lifelong companion and moral anchor. Gandhi was deeply influenced by the Hindu, Jain, and Vaishnav traditions around him, especially their teachings on nonviolence and respect for all life. As he grew, he was exposed to more diverse religious perspectives and philosophies, which would later shape his worldview of religious tolerance and respect. Education in England and legal career. In 1888, Gandhi traveled to London to study law at the Inner Temple, one of the four Inns of Court. This was a bold decision, as crossing the seas was looked down upon in traditional Indian society. In London, Gandhi experienced the challenges of adapting to Western culture. Initially struggling with the cultural shift, he eventually began to explore Western philosophy and literature, developing a keen interest in figures like Leo Tolstoy and the teachings of the Bible, especially the Sermon on the Mount, which influenced his ideas on love and nonviolence. Gandhi returned to India in 1891 as a qualified lawyer, yet he struggled to establish a legal practice. Lacking confidence and unable to argue in court, he found it challenging to secure clients. This difficult phase would shape Gandhi's humility and resilience, preparing him for his transformative journey ahead. Awakening in South Africa. In 1893, Gandhi received a one-year contract to work as a lawyer for an Indian firm in South Africa. It was here that Gandhi encountered racial discrimination firsthand, which would alter the course of his life. The incident that sparked this change happened on a train journey from Durban to Pretoria, when Gandhi, holding a first-class ticket, was forcibly removed from the compartment by a white railway official. This incident left a deep scar on Gandhi's mind, igniting his determination to fight for justice. South Africa became a turning point for Gandhi as he began to develop his philosophy of satyagraha, or truth force, a form of nonviolent resistance. During his time there, he led protests against discriminatory laws targeting the Indian community, including the passed laws that restricted Indian movement. Gandhi established the Natal Indian Congress, a political organization advocating for the rights of Indians, and encouraged a spirit of solidarity and resistance within the community. Over 21 years, he launched several successful campaigns, emerging as a political leader and refining his ideas on nonviolence, equality, and self-sacrifice. Return to India and the struggle for independence. In 1915, Gandhi returned to India, now an influential figure with a unique approach to political resistance. He traveled extensively across the country to understand the conditions of rural India, recognizing the deep impact of British colonial policies on Indian farmers, laborers, and the poor. During this period, he became a follower of the Jain philosophy of ahimsa, nonviolence, and took vows of celibacy, poverty, and simplicity. Gandhi's reputation grew as he connected with the plight of common Indians, advocating for self-reliance and emphasizing Swadeshi, the use of locally made goods, to challenge British economic exploitation. Under Gandhi's leadership, the Indian National Congress took up several notable campaigns. In 1917, he led the Champaran agitation, a movement to support indigo farmers forced to grow crops under oppressive terms. The success of this nonviolent protest marked the first step in a larger freedom struggle. The Kheda Satyagraha of 1918 followed, where he led a peaceful movement for tax relief for farmers impacted by crop failures and famine. Non-cooperation and civil disobedience. In 1920, Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement, urging Indians to withdraw from British institutions, including schools, courts, and government jobs, as a form of peaceful protest. The movement aimed to encourage Indians to rely on their own capabilities rather than depending on British institutions. People all over India participated enthusiastically, boycotting foreign goods and reviving traditional industries like khadi, hand-spun cloth. However, Gandhi called off the movement in 1922 after the violent Chauri Chaura incident, where police officers were killed. This decision showed Gandhi's strict adherence to non-violence. The 1930 Salt March, Dandi March, was perhaps Gandhi's most famous protest. He led a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea, where he symbolically made salt to defy British laws that monopolized the salt industry and imposed heavy taxes on the essential commodity. The march attracted global attention, becoming a powerful symbol of nonviolent resistance and sparking nationwide acts of civil disobedience, imprisonments, and world recognition. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Gandhi faced multiple imprisonments but remained undeterred. His commitment inspired Indians and captivated the world, with global leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela citing him as an influence in their own struggles for justice and equality. Gandhi also addressed social injustices within India, including the oppression of Harijans, whom he called the children of God or Dalits, and the injustices of the caste system. Gandhi's efforts reached the international stage, as he traveled to England in 1931 for the Round Table Conferences, representing India's case for independence. Although the conference did not yield immediate results, his powerful moral presence highlighted the righteousness of India's cause. Independence and partition. As World War II unfolded, Gandhi's demand for British withdrawal from India intensified. The Quit India movement, launched in 1942, was his final push for British exit, resulting in mass arrests and repression but consolidating the national resolve for freedom. India eventually gained independence on August 15, 1947, but this victory was marred by the tragic partition of India and Pakistan, leading to widespread communal violence, mass migrations, and loss of life. Gandhi, heartbroken by the violence between Hindus and Muslims, spent his last years tirelessly advocating for peace and unity. He walked through riot-torn areas, fasting to appeal for an end to the bloodshed, often risking his own life for his principles of love and compassion. Assassination and legacy. On January 30, 1948, Gandhi was assassinated in New Delhi by Nathram Godse, a Hindu nationalist who opposed Gandhi's tolerance toward Muslims. His death sent shockwaves through India and the world. Though Gandhi's life ended tragically, his legacy lived on as a beacon of nonviolence and justice. Mahatma Gandhi's teachings and principles have had a profound and enduring impact. His life inspired generations of activists worldwide, including leaders in the civil rights, anti-apartheid, and human rights movements. His unwavering commitment to truth, simplicity, and humanity left an indelible mark on the world. And his message of peace and unity continues to resonate across cultures and generations. Mahatma Gandhi, whose full name was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, is one of the most influential figures in modern history. His life, teachings, and actions have left a lasting impact on the world, not only in India but globally, inspiring movements for civil rights, freedom, and social justice. Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolence, ahimsa, and truth, satyagraha, revolutionized how people could resist oppression and injustice. Here are more key aspects of his life and philosophy. Philosophy of nonviolence, ahimsa, and truth, satyagraha. Gandhi's philosophy was rooted in the principles of nonviolence and truth, which he combined into the concept of satyagraha, a form of nonviolent resistance or soul force. Gandhi believed that the ultimate truth could only be discovered through the practice of nonviolence. This principle rejected all forms of violence, not only physical violence but also mental and verbal violence. Gandhi emphasized that to resist injustice, one should not harm the oppressor but instead practice love, patience, and forgiveness. For Gandhi, satyagraha was a moral force, not just a political strategy. It required the practitioner to align their personal life with their beliefs and to practice truth in every aspect of existence. This philosophy was not just for political resistance but also for personal transformation. Gandhi believed that through nonviolence, individuals could purify themselves and bring about social and political change without resorting to harm. The role of self-reliance, Swadeshi. One of Gandhi's key tenets was Swadeshi, or the idea of self-reliance. This was particularly evident in his promotion of hand-spinning and weaving cloth, known as khadi, to boycott British-made goods. Gandhi believed that by producing their own goods, Indians would reduce their dependence on British products, weakening colonial control over the economy. Khadi became a symbol of Indian resistance, and Gandhi's insistence on wearing simple, hand-woven clothes was not just a political statement but also a call for self-sufficiency and economic independence. Gandhi saw the adoption of Swadeshi as a means of revitalizing India's rural economy. He encouraged rural development, the revival of traditional crafts, and the decentralization of power. He believed that true freedom for India lay not in merely gaining political independence but in rebuilding and strengthening local economies and communities. Struggle for social justice. Gandhi's political philosophy was deeply intertwined with his social vision. He was acutely aware of India's social inequalities, especially the discrimination faced by lower caste Hindus, who were often referred to as untouchables. Gandhi called them Harijans, or children of God, and he dedicated much of his life to fighting for their rights and dignity. He believed that the caste system, which marginalized large sections of Indian society, was an evil practice that needed to be eradicated. He also campaigned for women's rights, advocating for women's education, their right to participate in the freedom struggle, and for the abolition of practices like child marriage. Gandhi encouraged women to join in the nationalist struggle, and many did, taking part in protests, marches, and campaigns. The Salt March, Dandi March. One of the defining moments of Gandhi's leadership was the Salt March, or Dandi March, in 1930. In protest against the British monopoly on salt production and the salt tax, Gandhi led a 240-mile (386 kilometers) march to the coastal town of Dandi in Gujarat, where he broke the law by making salt from seawater. This act of civil disobedience became a turning point in India's struggle for independence. The Salt March not only demonstrated the power of non-violent protest but also unified Indians across the country. It was a direct challenge to British authority and drew global attention to the Indian independence movement. The march inspired similar acts of civil disobedience. And the British struggled to contain the growing movement, political leadership and independence movement. Gandhi's approach to the Indian independence movement was characterized by his commitment to non-violence and the idea of satyagraha, which made his political struggle stand out in comparison to more conventional forms of resistance, such as armed struggle. Gandhi's leadership was not based on a formal political office, but on his moral authority. He was seen as a Mahatma, meaning great soul, a title that reflected both his religious and political influence. His leadership was instrumental in uniting various groups within India's diverse population, from peasants to intellectuals. Hindus, Muslims, and people of different castes, all joining the cause for independence. Gandhi's unique ability to articulate the struggles of the common people and inspire them to engage in peaceful resistance made him the undisputed leader of the Indian National Congress, Inc., and the face of the Indian freedom movement. Salt tax, non-cooperation movement, and Quit India movement. Gandhi's campaigns, such as the non-cooperation movement, 1920 to 1922, aimed to make India self-sufficient and to weaken British rule by encouraging Indians to withdraw from British institutions. This included boycotting British goods, resigning from British-supported jobs, and refusing to attend British schools and courts. Though the movement was called off after violence erupted in Chauri Chaura, it marked a significant step in Gandhi's philosophy of non-violent resistance. The Quit India movement, 1942, was another pivotal moment in Gandhi's leadership. In the wake of World War II, Gandhi called for a mass uprising demanding that the British quit India. This resulted in mass arrests, and the movement was suppressed violently by the British. However, it symbolized India's collective will to achieve independence, despite British repression. India's partition in Gandhi's last days. Gandhi's hopes for a unified India were shattered when the British partitioned the country into two separate nations, India and Pakistan, based on religious lines. While Gandhi's influence was pivotal in securing independence, the division led to horrific communal violence, with millions of people displaced and countless lives lost. Gandhi was heartbroken by the bloodshed between Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, and he spent his final days trying to bring peace between these communities. He fasted in protest of the violence and worked tirelessly to encourage reconciliation, though his efforts were met with resistance from both sides. Tragically, on January 30, 1948, Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse, a Hindu nationalist who blamed him for being too accommodating toward Muslims. Gandhi's death marked the end of an era but did not diminish his moral and political legacy. Legacy of Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence and his belief in the power of truth continue to inspire countless movements for justice, civil rights, and human dignity across the world. His methods of peaceful protest were emulated by other leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Cesar Chavez, all of whom drew inspiration from his teachings in their struggles against racial and social injustice. Gandhi's life and legacy have also shaped the way political movements are organized today, emphasizing grassroots participation, peaceful civil disobedience, and moral integrity. His call for, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," remains a guiding principle for individuals and groups seeking to bring about positive social change. In India, Gandhi is revered not only as the leader of the independence movement but also as a figure who shaped the country's moral and spiritual vision. His birthday, October 2nd, is celebrated as Gandhi Jayanti in India and is observed as the International Day of Nonviolence. His legacy of nonviolence, truth, and social justice continues to serve as a powerful beacon for people around the world fighting for a better, more equitable world.